I feel like me hitting go live is not the tradition. I feel like it's always you. So what's that say about how today is going to go?
I think today's going to be awesome, Abby. Awesome.
It's going to be so good. Look at this. I'm going to turn my screen because I'm still embarrassed by the fact that I have not painted my door jamb. So I'm just going to call it out and then awkwardly scoot to the side. Hello,
I'm going to try to adjust my camera awkwardly.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, do it.
I felt like my head was like way down at the bottom of the screen. And yeah. So anyway, hey, everybody, what's happening? Who all do we have with us today? NJ, Zarintha, Bon. Hello, Bon.
Christina.
Yeah.
Bon and Bree is here. Ash is here. Hey, y'all.
Hey. What's up, everybody?
I did notice that weird door frame. Of course somebody would notice it. I'm like, don't point out the dirt in your house, Abby. That's what Martha Stewart says. And then I go and point it out. And then Bon's like, oh, I already saw it. Too late.
Already saw it. Already judged you.
Well, it's partially because I can't decide if I want to paint it pink like this, or the other side of the door frame is actually a really bright green, like one of my frames right here. And I don't know if both sides of the pocket door should have the same color or if I should stick with the color of the so that's neither here nor there, but that's why it hasn't been done is I'm like, I really split.
What exactly is a pocket door?
It slides into the wall. Only I not only installed the pocket door, I built the wall and it doesn't slide all the way in. So I couldn't get a sofa through the door and I had to buy one in a box that was unput together so I could put it together in my office because I had made that mistake. This is what happens when you have the art majors.
And that's nobody's business. So, I love it. So fun. So fun. What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining us for this edition of Fireside Chat. Did anyone just leave Sprints? Doug traded with me this week.
A bunch of them did.
And yeah. So happy to have you with us. It should have been me today, but we Doug had something to do on Thursday, so I swapped with him. And so you'll get me on Thursday, but tomorrow you get Abby for a lovely coffee hour. What do you have coming up tomorrow, Abby?
I think we've kind of like loosely talked about we will definitely be having a D&D chat room because we didn't get to address that last time. Some of our community members are playing D&D. So if you have any interest in that, come chat because they're just getting started. It's not like they've started their campaign and you're jumping in the middle of anything. You can get in on the beginning stages of that. We're going to have a sprint room too, because some people, you just can't break that habit.
Right.
Some people just want the sprints.
Yeah. And there's we'll nothing like riding with friends.
Right. And we're going to have our main room where we're just going to talk about wherever the wind takes us. That's where the conversation's going to go. So
excellent.
Nice.
Excellent.
It's nice.
Well, for this fireside chat, we have an interesting topic, and it's one that you pitched to me last week, Abby, when we were talking about what to do for our next fireside chat. And you said, what about taking a wisp of an idea and turning it into a story? And I love this topic so much because, and I talk about this on the podcast all the time, that I am fascinated, utterly fascinated by the moment of creation. That it's literal magic that we as writers get to harness. We get to be a part of the process. Because
sorry, I was just looking at the chat and I was like, we're totally talking about
this. Love it. Love it. Fantastic book, by the way. I love Libby Hawker. Yeah,
we
I
both
Libby
love
Hawker
Libby
so much. And and if you are a pantserish person, definitely a book worth reading and gleaning some insight from good old Libby. Um, anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, yeah.
The moment of creation.
Fascinated by the moment of creation because in at one moment in time, whatever the book is you're working on right now did not exist in any form or fashion, just didn't exist. And then either a character walks onto the stage of your mind and you're like, "Ooh, who is she? What is she up to?" And then maybe this fellow walks in from the right side and you're like, "Oh, well, this is an interesting dynamic." And then things suddenly blow up and you're like, "Well, I've got to find out what's going on with these people." And then, or maybe you're reading a news article or something. And your brain starts playing the what if game. And Stephen King talks about this a little bit in On Writing. He talks about, you're driving down the road and you see someone off on the shoulder of the road, and all of a sudden your mind just starts, you know, playing the what ifs with this person. And then in some form or fashion, the book you're working on does exist. It's an entire thing. And then you as the writer, it's your job to scrape around in the dirt and pull that thing out and polish it up and, and excavate it. And then, throughout this alchemy that we call writing, a book exists. And when I say that, doing 5,000 or excuse me, 3,000 author interviews over 15 years, I'm still just as fascinated with that moment because everybody has a different story
Okay,
of how it works for them. They have a different insight. It,
different
and it's
process.
and
Yeah.
it's just at one point it's just magic. It's just magic. And we get to be a part of that. And
Yeah.
it's one of the things I love the
Man,
most about the process.
you know who did it for me yesterday, though?
Who's that?
Randall. He slid the last piece of the puzzle into
Mm,
place for me in this new book that I am working on. And I was like, oh my God, I could just kiss you. I mean, he's so far away, or else I would go and hug him and be like, thank you so much. You did it. You helped me. Like for
if you
me,
try to kiss him from that distance, you're gonna have some very
it's
chapped lips.
very, and it's very cold where he is right now. So I
Yeah,
don't know that
yeah,
I want that anyway.
yeah. Nobody needs
Um,
that. But and he's married, but that's beside the point.
Maybe he's my boss's dad.
And
Maybe don't mix
right.
in.
Yeah, there's a lot of complications here. We'll just, but anyway.
Man, he
What
split
so
that
what
last piece for me.
so that's what I was going to ask you. So we were having this conversation about things that we had watched or I forget exactly what the question was you posed in our weekly meeting, and we always kind of wrap up our weekly meeting with a
Fun
supposedly
question.
fun question. Yeah, they're rarely fun. But this one was.
That was fun.
Um
Thank you.
and and Randall starts talking about the bridge to Terabithia, and what was the other story?
Where the red fern
Where the
grows.
red fern
And I was
grows. And
like,
that
yes,
so what
that's
was
it.
it about that? What
Oh,
was it that slid the final piece in for you? Like it
because
was something he said kicked off the
I,
engine for you. What was it?
I'm writing this bummer of an MG book. I
Yeah.
mean, let's just put this out there, y'all. It's a bummer. And I love to start with comps. And there's
Yeah.
something for me that is just so magic about 3 comps. And the comps that I start with are not necessarily marketing comps. They're purely for me. They're like what am I trying to do with this book? How can I sort of define the vibe of this book and what this book is doing? And so for Thick as Thieves, it was Ronya the Robber's Daughter and the
Hmm.
Boxcar Children. Those were sort of the 2 pieces that I had. This robber's daughter living in the woods but by herself, like the Boxcar Children.
Right.
But I didn't have that like third comp. Like for A
Because
Little Trouble
because
Goes a Long Way. Once I got that third comp, it all
yeah,
fell into place for me.
and the first 2 comps you have are a little whimsical.
Yeah,
Is
they're
that a fair? Is that a
little.
fair?
I
Yeah.
mean,
Well.
Ronya is kind of heavy. I mean, if you
Yeah.
think about it, the Boxcar Children, they're running away from like this vile grandfather, right? They choose to live
Yes.
alone in the woods in a boxcar instead of.
But
with their
But
family.
shenanigans happen along the way.
But yeah,
Yeah, and
and
shenanigans tend to lift the spirits a little.
oh yeah. So
Yeah.
but there are no spirits being lifted in Bridge to Terabithia or the Red
Zero.
Ferns Grow.
Zero spirits lifted. Well,
None
I'll tell you what,
whatsoever.
when old Dan and little Ann, I'm about to cry right now.
Yeah, hold it
Yeah,
together, Hank,
I'm
because I
trying.
cannot
I'm
pass a
trying.
tissue through Zoom. So,
Have my own. Thank you
but
very
I think
much.
what it did was it gave me permission to just embrace this like heavy MG story that I wanted to write because it
Yeah.
reminded me of a couple things. It reminded me that one, not every MG story has to be fun or silly or slapstick.
Right.
I'm not going to say it ends on a bad note, but it's not a traditional happy ending. It's bittersweet, is what I wanted. And so, and I think that's reflective in those other two books. But also, I'm always inspired by these classic tales that have withstood the test of time, and that
Mhm.
is desperately what I want to write, is something that's going to withstand the test of time. And I was thinking about it earlier because I do write a lot of funny slapstick silly stuff. I am not above a good fart joke. um,
Right.
Stu the Duck definitely falls into that category, but it's kind of the
Yeah.
difference between like Captain Underpants and the one and only Ivan, right? Like,
Mm,
which one of those stories is going to really withstand the test of time? And that's not to
right.
say anything bad about Captain Underpants, because oh boy, if I had only written that one,
Oh,
I'd
right.
be happy.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
kids love that story. I
Well,
mean,
yeah.
they
And you
just,
could go to the grocery store in your coat made of $100 bills.
of course, you could. You could totally do it.
Right.
And I'm not going to lie, when my kids were in elementary school, one of their friends, Dresden, his mother had to take away Captain Underpants because he got sent to the principal's office for mooning children on the playground. And he said he was inspired by Captain Underpants. And I'm like,
Checks
you know
out.
what? That's the kind of trouble I would like to cause one day. So
Yeah.
trust me,
Yeah.
I would fully embrace Captain Underpants. But,
Yeah.
but
And
then you have this other
you could you
subset.
could you could replace middle grade Maven with literary instigator.
That's right. That's
Yeah, I
right.
like
I
that.
mean,
Yeah.
I'll take it. That book did
Yeah.
something for that kid.
Oh
So
yeah. Look, if a book can make a middle schooler drop trowel,
my work here is done. So,
yeah, yeah. So
but I anyway, all of that to say, it really also helped remind me of the type of story that I wanted to write.
yeah,
And that it didn't have to have a happy ending. And I think that was the piece that I needed in order to really hit home. And I went back to my outline today, and we're talking about in the chat, Libby Hawkers, take off your pants, and we've sort of mentioned it. Spoiler alert, since if you're one of the 16 people watching us live right now, you're one of our super fans. I will hazard to guess I'm not spoiling much for you, but I'm scripting the next Dabble challenge this week. And I'm using this wisp of an idea that I had, which was just that when I started scripting. It was just a wisp. And I used it as the demo for the next challenge. And I went back to that demo outline today and was like, oh, thanks to Randall, I gotta go darker. And I did.
mm.
I made some dark decisions that involve hemlock. So
So if oh
I know, right? Uh-huh.
sassy. Is this a book that you've started drafting, or you're still in the in the in the plotting stage?
Thanks
Don't know why.
to
Don't know why I couldn't grab the word plotting, but okay.
thanks to scripting out this challenge, it is now fully applauded as of today. So
Love it.
I
Love
bridged
it.
my way to Terabithia today, and now we're there.
People will die, fair listeners. People will die, and that's
They will.
I, that and this is very off topic, but I'm really curious
Mhm.
because you have sort of carved out a place that your stories like to live.
Mhm.
Now that you've kind of shifted to another gear, shall we say, and your idea has turned darker, even though it still lives in
Mhm.
the space that you like to be in, that your target audience. Um, how does it make you feel, like as a storyteller who typically goes to a certain place and you're comfortable going there? Now that these new emotions, these new paints in your palette, shall we say, how does that make you feel?
I'm actually I'm a little mad at myself because it's
Yeah,
not the same audience. And I'm like, is that a mistake? So early in one's career.
yeah,
But if I think about it, so A Little Trouble Goes a Long Way is one audience. Stu the Duck is a different audience because it's a younger audience.
hmm,
And I didn't worry about that too much because even though I put the Stu the Duck books out after, kids will grow into your next phase of books. But even though A Little Trouble Goes a Long Way it's got funny parts to it, the message behind
hmm,
it is um it's got a serious message. I mean, it's
hmm,
wholesome. I was
yeah,
called wholesome on more than one review. I was like, oh, not words I'm used to describing myself with, but it's wholesome. I think the message is probably a little more on point with Thick as Thieves here, which also has a serious message for kids, something that I think kids wrestle with. Kids wrestle with the problems in A Little Trouble Goes a Long Way, even though it's fantasy. And I know kids wrestle with my idea behind Thick as Thieves as well, because it was really inspired by interactions that I see my kids having with other kids at school. And so,
plus Dukes of Hazzard.
life also. No, that was this one. I always point up because there's there. Dukes of Hazzard was a little trouble. But
Mm.
Bridge to Terabithia is the one we're talking about now. So, yeah, right? But
Yeah,
I feel like kids wrestle with those things and we can't shy away from talking to them about it
yeah,
because that's not doing them any service.
yeah.
So,
I agree. I agree.
yeah.
And I feel the same way about adults. There are some stories that are right that and I'm so glad that you brought that up about, wondering if shifting your audience a bit is a good move for you as an author. And we've talked a little bit about um, kind of getting over this mindset of the instant gratification of publishing, that you're
Mhm.
taking the long view of your publishing career, that
Mhm.
this is something that you're in it to build over years, and this will be a legacy of yours and not just I'm depending on this to pay my mortgage next month.
Yeah.
And if you're that kind of writer, that's absolutely okay, that's valid, because I know lots of people who got into writing to do that very thing and it worked out for them, and 100% that's but you know uh if you're the kind of person who is more interested in building a body of work and letting it grow organically, and so that in 10 years you look back and you say, well, I've got 30 books here and they span these different topics, these different subgenres, a little different audience, that's okay. And
Mhm.
I think it's great, that even though it feels like it's a little disjointed, maybe from what you're used to writing, I think with some distance and perspective,
It all
you'll be able
comes.
it'll all come together. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'm, you know, but
Well, and I keep
I'm
telling
the
myself
eternal optimist. So
I might find that that turns into my specialty. That I think it's
yeah,
funny and silly and slapstick. And I'm not going to lie, Jeff and I write some really fantastic jokes. So let's
yeah.
just lay that out there. We're very funny people. So, but I have thought about the fact that it's possible that this could actually be truer to my voice than I think. And that's a little
Mm,
scary. What's so dark inside me? But
but yeah, but if you find out that that is your true voice, um, more magic can happen because you are
yeah.
being truer to the stories that live inside there somewhere. And I don't know.
Mm.
Um, I think it's a good thing when you make those, even as uncomfortable as they can be.
Oh
I
yeah.
fully recognize the discomfort that can come with that, but that's when the magic comes out.
I think this one's
Anyway,
going to be pretty magical too. So, anyway, you guys,
yeah.
just you wait until we get started. If you have a wisp of an idea, let me just say that this dabble challenge that we're doing, which by the way, we're going to call the Great Dabble Plot Off, which I think is awesome.
That is awesome. That is awesome.
The Great Dabble Plot Off can help you take it because I had a working title, I had a setting, I had 2 of my 3 comps. That was it. I didn't even have a name for a main character when I started this. It was just that was it. That was all I had. And I used Libby's book to start fleshing it out. And it was great. I mean, usually I would let that sit until I had more pieces, but I
Mhm.
didn't. I sat down and made myself just make some decisions. And it turns out that that little bit that I had was all that I needed. Now,
Yeah.
my question for you, Hank, is are you going to demo the Great Dabble Plot Off with me? And if
Oh,
so,
100%.
what's your wisp of an idea?
Don't know yet.
Oh,
Yeah,
your
I'm
wispless?
gonna.
Your
I'm
wispless.
well. I mean, I always have 4 or 5 ideas that are percolating always.
See?
That's why I'm like, I say it all the time. Like that is the most trite question that an interviewer can ever ask an author is where do you get your ideas from? I hate that question. I hate it, hate it, hate it because
But yet
ideas
you
are
love it.
everywhere. Well, yeah.
Mhm,
I mean, I like to pick on it for sure, but ideas are everywhere. And
mhm.
the the more pertinent question is what makes one idea float a little higher than the rest? How do you know that this is an idea with legs?
So
That's the more interesting question.
what stage are your ideas in right now? Like what do you have? Just like a little floating dust mote of a character? Like what you got in your head?
I have I have one idea that I'm working on, that I've had in my head for quite a while is this guy who lives in a little cabin on the edge of this town. A lot of stories I write are set in this fictional town called Weston, Mississippi. That's just below the delta of Mississippi on the Mississippi River, just north of Vicksburg, Mississippi, and just south of the
It's
magical
fictional,
crossroads.
but you know exactly where it is?
Oh, I know exactly where it is.
Oh, yeah.
I can take you to Highway 61, and I can
You
tell
go
you exactly where
right to
Weston
platform in
lives.
9 3/4, you
That's
know right
right,
where it
that's
is?
right.
Yeah.
And there's something special about Weston that the veil between the worlds is just a little thinner there. Weird things happen. It's not a full magical place, but strange things can happen there. Just put it there. And this guy lives in this cabin on the edge of town, and things happen to him He has interactions with all sorts of people, but we find out pretty quickly that he hasn't interacted with anybody in years. And so I don't know exactly where it's going, but I have a character. I have either some sort of mental illness, or something, and I don't have it pinned down exactly yet, but he's an interesting character, and he at least he believes that he is connected to the larger community when he's actually not. Um, and then he's kind of forced into some interaction with some people. So I don't know exactly where it's going to go, but he's kind of perfectly content to be in this magical make believe that exists only in his head, and then he's kind of dragged into the light. So I don't. It's just an idea that I've just had for a while. And this character, I know a lot about this character. I know what he looks like. All this stuff, but I've just never kind of, and I've never like sat down to actually work it out. I've been happy to just kind of let him live back here somewhere.
Which isn't that how you normally decide if one of your ideas has legs?
Yes. I'll get now. Sometimes I'll have a great plot idea, and I always write those things down because I don't trust myself to remember them. I've had several authors tell me in the past that if it's a great idea, it'll be there tomorrow. No, it won't. You don't understand how I can wake up tomorrow and not remember what my name is, much less this great story idea I had yesterday. So if I have a great plot idea, I always jot that stuff down. But a character is different for me. Like this guy just kind of walked in one day, and I didn't really know. Yeah, he just kind of he lives like right here, just kind of hangs out back here, and I don't know. I just kind of keep him around. And
you had a name?
I don't have a name yet. I don't know, and I don't have a name for the book. Sometimes you mentioned that your plot idea that you had a title,
which I normally don't.
Yeah, and
you do.
I'm about half and half. Sometimes I do, but sometimes it kind of comes in the writing. Or sometimes I'll have a working title that winds up to not be the title, but it kind of anchored my idea at the time.
I think that's happened to me almost every single time. The working title doesn't end up being the final title. I think this one's going to stick, though.
Oh, I love it.
I think this one's going to stick.
But you mentioned last week about the plot off, and I said I have an idea, but I'm gonna hang on to it until then, and I'm just gonna do it live. I'm gonna
That's what I'm hoping you'll do.
I'm gonna just work it out in front of people, which is a lot less intimidating now than it used to be. Like I used to be terrified of stuff like that, but I don't.
It's gonna be awesome.
After riding in front of people on sprints for however long, you can see how the sausage is made. It's gross, but
There's a lot of cleanup involved. So.
A lot of cleanup involved. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes multiple hand washings. Yeah. So,
well, for anybody who's struggling with the wisp of an idea, if you really do hang on until we get to the great double plot off, I think it's going to be a great time to give it a shot. And what I'm actually going to do is encourage people not to come to the great double plot off and work on a book that they've already been working on. Maybe they've already plotted it. Like, not that I want to dissuade anyone from doing that. If they're stuck somewhere in the middle, sometimes circling back and plotting things is exactly what it needs to move you past your roadblock. But I think it's a really fun exercise, especially if you're one of those writers who is so afraid that you only have one book idea in you.
Which I think is every writer in the beginning.
And not just that, even if you have written a bunch of books, like how many times have you been writing a book and you're working on it and you're like, oh my God, what if this is it? What if I have tapped myself out after this one? Right. So I
Yeah.
think this is a really fun. I mean, and if we're doing it over the course of a week, what's it matter if you put down what you're doing for a week
Right.
and use this as an exercise to prove to yourself I actually have more books in me than I think I do. Now, I think I have 3 fully outlined books that have not been written that are sitting on my computer just waiting for me to decide it's time.
Yeah.
So,
What was
I
that?
mean, what?
It sounded like a whole shelf of books fell.
Not at my house. Was it at my house? Hold on.
Um,
I don't think it was at my house.
yep.
Uh-oh.
And this the ghost from Weston, apparently.
He's not happy that you told his secrets on YouTube Live.
Right. So have you ever had that moment where you're like, I don't have another story in me? I know you have 3 outlined now.
Yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
God. When I was writing my first book, I was terrified that I didn't have anything else in me. And it actually made me not want to finish my first book because I was afraid when I'm done with this, I'm done. That was it. That's all she wrote, quite literally. And I remember Jenny. So Jenny Nash was my book coach at the time, and I was finishing that first book. She sat me down at one point and she said, you know, you have like a gazillion books in you, right? She's like, I've been listening to you for the last 2 years. She's like, you have ideas and now you have a process and that's all you need. She's like, you have a million books in you. You just need to go write them. And the funny thing was, I had never voiced that fear. I mean, she knew it was in there because like we all have that same ding dong fear, like you just said. I mean, this is not Abby in isolation. This is most of us out there. And I think there was something about having someone who had been so intimately involved in the writing of my first book say to me, like, you got so many of these. What are you worried about? That was the mental push I needed to be like, oh, relax, Abby, you can do this.
A weird thing will happen with me, especially early on, when I was writing my first book, is that I would think I'm going to say everything I've ever wanted to say in this one book that I'll have nothing left to talk about. And then you get to like the 65-70% mark. And then I don't know if it's your brain not wanting to finish what you started, but ideas just come out of everywhere and you're like, oh, this is another book. It's so
you
funny.
have to watch out for that too, though. That shiny object syndrome will bite you in the rear end so fast, by the way. So don't.
Yes, it will.
If you're afraid that you don't have another book in you, and just before you finish that first book, you start to get all these cool ideas that are going to keep you from finishing that first book. You write them down and then you lock them away and then you focus on finishing that first book because that's a whole nother trouble that you're talking about.
Yeah. There. And let that be a reward for finishing the thing you're working on is that, oh, I've got this cool thing that I want to pursue next, but I have to finish what I'm working on now. And, for the kind of people who need rewards to get your work done, let that be your reward.
Go for it.
That's a whole topic for Abby and me, but that's neither here nor there.
Do not get us started on that topic. You will regret it.
So Abby, you get a great idea. And well, first off, what shape do new ideas come in like for you? Like I've said, it's usually a character that kind of walks on and I'm like, well, you're interesting. And then there's usually something quirky about them that makes me interested in finding out who they are and kind of what they're up to. And then a plot device will come later, like some trouble that I'm going to put this person into. And then usually there's another person that's in some sort of relationship to this person, romantic, maybe familial, maybe they're in a car wreck together, opposite sides of the intersection. Anyway, that something brings these characters together, and then the alchemy happens.
Happens.
It starts kind of coming out of that. What's it like for you? Where do stories begin for you?
I mean, when I say to you, they almost always begin with a comp. I can't remember one. Yeah, I can't remember one that didn't start with, I want to write something that's kind of like this, but kind of like this, and kind of like this. Like I like for me, it's almost like the vibe comes first. Like this
Okay,
is the vibe that I want to write. Then the character comes next. Plot almost always comes last.
interesting.
I mean, almost always that is the last thing to slide into place, because I have a character, and then what can push this character into learning the lesson. So I guess that maybe might be the other thing that comes pretty early for me. My comps, which are the vibe,
Hmm.
I have a character, but then I also have, I mean, not to sound like an English teacher, but it's like my theme. I call it my bumper sticker because
Yeah,
that feels less like something you would learn in English class. But like what is it that I'm trying to say with this book? And
yeah.
I mean, that's another soapbox for me just as an artist in general, is I feel like the whole reason why we turn to writing in the first place is we have something that we're trying to use our voice to say. I mean,
Right.
for writers, it's the written word. For visual
Hmm.
artists, it's, the visual images that you're producing, but there's something that's growing inside of you that you want to come out. And that was the thing with Thick as Thieves, was before my comps kind of all started coming together,
Hmm.
even before I came up with my first character. So Willa is the name of the little girl who's the main character in the story. Before Willa even walked into the scene, I knew what I wanted to use this book to talk about was this idea that children oftentimes grow up just parroting their parents. They parrot what they have learned from their parents. Like for me and for this particular book, um, my daughter has for years had a friendship with another little girl who, the two families have very different political views.
Hmm.
And I say to my kids all the time, I'm like, oh my God, you're kids. Like, just go be kids.
Right.
Don't worry about this. And
Yeah.
I know you think that because that's what we say, and your friends think that because that's what their parents say. You guys have to find your own common ground. Like, you have to
Hmm.
find a way to get along and decide, even if you don't believe the same things, like
Yeah.
that you can get along. So
Yeah.
it's this idea that you inherit beliefs from your family, and you have to decide, do those beliefs serve you? And that was at the core of me wanting to write this story, was thinking about this idea of how do you encourage kids to have the courage to make those decisions about what it is that they believe
Hmm.
and who they want to become.
Right.
And so that was sort of what started gelling the story. Then I had a character who I knew I could push in a certain way, that would be the lesson that she had to learn. And then another character came in that was her mirror opposite, which was exactly what I needed for this story. And it all kind of started to grow from there. So, I think, don't disregard stopping for a minute and thinking about what it
Hmm.
is that you want to say with the story, because that can actually help you make a lot of decisions.
Right.
Um, which is,
Right.
I think, the hardest part for this, don't you? Is
I
making a
do too.
decision and knowing, like, that's going to domino a whole bunch of other decisions. And what if I decide later on I didn't like that decision, and now I have to go back and change everything? And then you like get yourself all worked up in a ball.
How long did it take you to come to this realization about the role that the theme or the bumper sticker plays in your story? Because that was something that I was very resistant to for a
Mhm.
while. Um, and I still don't think about theme in the like it's not one of my building blocks for the story, but it's always in the back of my mind.
Mhm.
It's something I'm always working toward, even if I choose not to acknowledge it. It's always the
It's there.
driving factor. Take Crossroad Blues for instance, the book that I published a few months ago. Um, it started with a concept of this legend of the Mississippi Delta crossroads and the deal with the devil. And it started with an idea. What if someone made this deal with the devil and then wants to take it back? And
Mhm.
then and
As
so
one
I was
would.
like, as one would. But you
Yeah.
you never hear that side of the story. But the kind of the overarching theme and the thing that drives the story, the heart and soul of the story is really, is anyone ever out of the reach of redemption? Like like
Yeah.
can you make a decision that you can't get out of? Is anyone ever truly lost? And so
Oh, so good.
that was the
It's your bumper
driving
sticker.
factor for that. That's my bumper
Yeah,
sticker.
that's your bumper
And so
sticker.
yeah, so even though it's not something that I like to and I don't know if it's just that by identifying it and kind of sticking it to the wall, it feels too academic, but it's always in the back of my mind, and it's always what's driving the story forward.
Oh
And it took
god.
me a while to kind of realize that and to trust myself that my subconscious mind is
Is
always telling a story, and is telling a story for a reason, and just trust the reason. And
I
that was a very difficult point for me to come to.
I usually have a Post-it note with my bumper stickers stuck
Really
right here because to me I need that reminder sometimes so that I don't make
interesting.
decisions and get lost that I'm going to end up having to either agonize over omitting later or that are going to lead me down a path that's going to take me someplace else. But I mean, you asked when did I come to that realization
Yeah.
that that was something I needed to do? The very first book that I wrote.
Mm,
I mean, honestly, it was something I was taught,
mhm.
and I just made it an inherent part of my process. I think because when Jenny was teaching me how to write a book, that was theme was one of the things that she talked about. And I think she would call it like a one liner. Like you kind of got to have one line to describe your book. And it's
Yeah.
not necessarily something that has to do with plot. It's just like, what is at the heart of your book? What is this book really about? And so, um, you know, I've worked it in from the beginning, but I think it's a crucial piece and not I think one of the things I've struggled with is I've realized that not every genre holds that true though. So
Yeah.
like if you have a mystery, if you're writing a mystery, it's about solving the crime. It's not
Yeah.
necessarily about some sort of like arc that the sleuth is taking. It's a puzzle.
Yeah. And, I think that's true for, like, a Jack Reacher style
Yep.
book
Yep.
where y Reacher doesn't really have a character arc. It's really a
Yeah.
flat arc. He shows up, he does the thing, he disappears. The next book, he just kind of appears out of the mist, and he's got a toothbrush in his back pocket, and that's, everything that he owns. And, y you know,
So for that, like what's the point of writing the book? And if the point is that you're just showing this guy thwarting the bad guys and it's a
right.
fun thriller and you're playing with the genre, then that's the point. I mean,
That's the point, but I
yeah.
can't write that
I
because,
can't
y
either.
you know, because, like, the book that I'm currently editing, Murder Town, yeah, it's a murder mystery, but there's so much more going on. We got Stu and his relationship with Audrey, and he's trying to prove that he's worthy of her, and all of this angst that this murder happens to happen around is really what the story is about.
Yeah.
The murder is secondary. The murder is just, window dressing to kind of get us into this story, but it's real. The story is really about a
About him.
man. Him growing up to be a man and figuring out what his place in the world is, and is he worthy of the girl? That's what the story's about.
Yeah.
That's but so that's my bumper sticker, I guess.
Yeah.
Is he worthy of the girl? That's how do you grow up and be a man? How do so anyway, those are the
And
things
those are
that
great bumper stickers.
well, yeah, and those are things that that drive the story. Even though I don't have a post-it note, but it's just always in the back of my mind. That's what's driving my story forward. So when you have that kernel of an idea, you've got the your comps. Sometimes you have a title. Later comes the plot. How do you then start, weaving together what gets the story going, what instigates it? How do you start kind of laying out the foundation and the scaffolding for the story?
I know for me, I usually know the beginning and the end. Not
Mhm.
everybody knows the end. Do you know
Yeah,
the end? Because
always,
to me, okay,
always.
same. I know what I want to happen at the end of the
Yep.
story. And I
I
think if I
I know
don't
where
have
they
those
begin. I know
points,
where I want them to end up. And now
so
and the mystery is what happens in between.
well, that's what I say. Plot wise is just how do you get them from A
Mhm.
to Z while simultaneously learning whatever that lesson is? I mean,
Right.
it sounds simple, but it's tricky as hell. And
Yeah.
so, that's, I have to say, I generally struggle a little with plot, not
Mhm.
just with plot, but with the agency of the character. Like I can figure out the things that need to happen to get somebody from A to Z, but putting it in my character's hands so that the bad decisions are theirs and then they have to own them and they make their problem worse and then they make their problem better. It's that agency that I think sometimes I
Yeah.
really struggled with. That's super important in middle grade in particular. I imagine it's super important in any story because you don't want it to just be a series of things that happens that your character reacts to. You
Right.
want to see them make those bad decisions, which is, by the way, to harken back to our fun question from our double staff meeting
Yeah.
yesterday. That was why I was so delighted with that show, Free Bert. So, to catch the audience up on our insider conversation here, we were talking about what were the television shows that you enjoyed that were sort of a master class in writing in some way, shape, or form, right? And so, I mean,
Right.
like Ted Lasso is great. Schitt's Creek is great for writing. Like we were naming all these stories that had really strong writers, like behind the episodes. And I brought up we had just watched, and please no one judge me. We had just watched Free Bert, which is Bert Kreischer, I
Kreischer.
think is his
Kreischer.
Kreischer. Oh
Mhm.
my god, the comedian who like takes off his shirt with the giant beer belly and tells all his jokes, and they're just like atrocious jokes for the most part.
Yeah.
And he had this 6 episode series on, I don't know if it was Netflix or Hulu,
Netflix.
but when I say to you, it was like he would make a bad decision and it would bite him in the rear end, and then he would like not recognize how badly it was turning out, and he would double down and make an
Yes.
even worse decision to the point where it was so cringe. And you got to episode 6 and it was like I knew what was going to happen. I called what was going to happen. And my husband even turned to me and was like, well, you were right, you called it. And I was like, thank you, I saw what they were setting up, but he was just making all his problems worse. And so I was like, yes, I needed that
So
reminder.
so when Dawn and I watch a TV show, we always like dissect the plot as we're doing it, and we'll be like, okay, take a character, stick them in a tree, set the tree on fire, see what happens. Well, Bert climbs the tree, sets his own tree on fire, and then
Yes.
tries, yeah, and
And then tries to put it out by like peeing on it or something, but he's dehydrated and he's like run out. I
right,
mean,
right,
it's just it was
yeah.
it was it was a just dumpster fire of a show, but
But that's what his
so
stand up is. So, and
I can see that, which he worked
which I
some of it in.
yeah, and I think that's kind of like reflective of his actual life, which is,
Mhm.
you know, God love him. That's
Well, just making it
um
happen.
yeah, making it happen. So, for me, I'll have this character. I'll find this other character and then start kind of figuring, and then I see where they're beginning. I'll have an idea of where I want them to end. And then I start kind of putting together I'll do that sort of inside outline. This
Mhm.
happens, which
Yep.
causes this, which
The next
causes
thing, yep.
this, the next thing. And then
Super helpful.
yeah, and it's super helpful for me because I know where I'm beginning, I know where I'm ending,
Mhm.
and then how do I bridge the gap
Logically stair step there.
logically in a
Mhm.
believable way so that every time you turn a page, it's building on the page you just read.
Yes.
Um, and so then I take it from there. And then once I've done that and I've connected the beginning to the end, then I have a whole story. And then I can go
Mhm.
through and I can, start kind of monkeying around with subplots and, how to add tension here and bring in other characters. But all that stuff happens like right before I start drafting. Like
Mm.
those are I need my main characters and I need kind of a plot instigation and then bridging that to the end. And then once I have that full breadth of logic, then I can start adding all of the I can start decorating the tree if you want to use that analogy. But that's how it works for me, and it's a logical progression,
Mhm.
so that then when I sit down to start drafting, I almost never look back over my notes or my outline once in, except
Yeah.
for little details like this person has green eyes as opposed to brown eyes or whatever. The little details obviously you need to reference, but as far as like what happens and what this plot point is, I almost never look
You
back.
and I think, are kind of similar in that
Hmm.
respect, in that I've definitely written some pretty extensive outlines, which I've then proceeded to ignore because I felt
Yeah.
like I wrote them and it did the job. It told me the
Right.
story. I sort of know what I'm doing now, and then I'll
Hmm.
go after it. But I'm trying to reference it more, but actually plot out less, if that
Hmm.
makes
I get
sense.
that. Yeah, I
Because
get that.
I just want those like goal markers. Like, okay, I
Hmm.
know I have to get from here to here. I do find that I almost always end my outlines in the wrong spot. Like my scene that I've or my chapter that I've outlined, wherever I've ended it, is actually the beginning of the next chapter. Like I'm not there's still a piece to outlining that I think I'm missing, but it almost doesn't matter because like I've
Yeah.
figured out how to make it work.
Yeah.
Um, but this is the first time for Thick as Thieves that I am doing a second POV. So I've written
Interesting.
two outlines that I'm going to intertwine. And that's part of the day 5 of the Great Double Plot Off, is how do you put two timelines together?
How do you
Two
stitch them
outlines.
together?
How do you do it?
I did that in one book with 3 different timelines. One present day, one 1862, and then another like 400 BC. And that was a lot of fun. But
Yeah.
man, was it a headache. Was it a headache?
Mine is
Um,
definitely not timelines. That would be harder. Mine is just points of view,
Points of view, yeah. Yeah. Well,
but they're
mine
needed. So
yeah. Well, mine, the current day story was being informed by these previous timelines, and
so
so
you had to
you would
figure out
make
how to
this,
deliver.
yeah. So you would make
Mhm.
discoveries in the flashback that would then inform what was happening in present day. It was a lot of fun. never want to do it again. It was way too
Been
much
there,
work.
done
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a lot of fun though. That was the book that I wrote for Nick Cole's Apocalypse Weird. It was called Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. And it was
I mean, just the title alone makes you think it's going to get complicated.
yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to land this thing, if what advice would you have to people that have this wisp of an idea, but they want to, see it come to a fully formed story idea? If people are not, haven't gone through this process a number of times and have their own process solidified, what tools can they use to start figuring out what their creative process is like?
So you and I both really like Libby Hawker's book, Take Off Your Pants. Here,
Yes.
let me
Yes.
hold it up again. This is a great one because it's like a pantser's guide to outlining, but so
Right.
is Jenny Nash's Blueprint for a Book. Similar but different in the fact that Libby's is a little more like she sort of gives you the buckets to fill. So, but it's character driven. So you're asking yourself questions about your characters and sort of making your decisions and then letting that drive the plot. Jenny's book, Blueprint for a Book, I like it because it's also a series of questions that you can ask yourself that will sort of give you that entryway into the rest of the plot. And so if you just have pieces and you find a system like one of these that works for you, or maybe a combination of these that works for you, I mean, sometimes you don't know what works if you don't try it.
Right.
And so, if you come and do the Great Dabble plot off with me, we're going to walk you through Libby's portion. Jenny's book, if you get Blueprint for a Book, the great thing about that one is you can take your wisp of an idea and you can start at page 1 and you can just start answering her questions and see how far it gets you. But if you get stuck and you can't answer a question, there is absolutely nothing wrong with putting it on the back burner and letting it marinate for a little while longer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it'll eventually shake itself loose. Eventually you'll have a staff meeting and Randall will give you that last book
You're like,
that makes you go, hallelujah, that was it. So
that was it.
It'll all come together eventually, but until you sit down and you really start pushing yourself to put it on paper, it'll just stay an idea.
Yeah. I've not read Jenny's book, but I'm familiar with pieces of that book. I think I understand her process.
You've been around me long enough to.
Yes. By osmosis, I've just it pulls over from this side of the screen. But Libby's is fascinating because Libby talks about her journey from a pantser to a plotter, which is kind of where the title comes from. So it's great that you get that that feeling of there's a camaraderie that comes with like she's holding your hand, like this is how I used to think about story and this really freed me up. So the moral of the story is go pick up Libby's book, Take Off Your Pants. It's a great read and will help no matter where you find yourself on the plotter pantser spectrum. Everyone can benefit from it. Absolutely. When's the great plot off coming?
We don't know yet.
Okay.
I'm gonna start recording it probably next week. I'm gonna need to get a haircut first. I'm gonna be just vain enough to say I'm not recording it until I get a haircut. And then perhaps I need to also paint my thing since everyone has been pointing out my angle is wider on the screen lately. But I know it'll probably be this summer is what we've talked about. We want to have all the pieces done and in our pocket first, but we're going to be hyping this one up quite a bit. Yeah. I think we need to hype our challenges. So
it's going to be a lot of fun. So thank you all for joining us. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with another Fireside Chat. if you've got an idea for a fireside chat, because Abby and I are all the time like, what do we want to talk about this week? If
What are we
you,
gonna do?
yeah, what are we gonna do? If you have an idea that you would like to hear us riff on spontaneously, post it over at Dabble U, and we'll take your idea into consideration. Abby,
Sounds good.
always
Hi,
great to hang out.
everybody.
Bye.